Well, this week, team, we have a lovely lady by the name of Leslie Venetz. She is based in Chicago, Illinois. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Leslie, I've been looking forward to this. You are a real voice of knowledge. You're a top sales voice on LinkedIn. Very well earned. I want to jam about something I think that you and I were talking about before we went on air, which is around how some people treat sales as a job and some people treat it as a profession. But before we get into that, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of an intro about who you are and where you've got to today?
Sure. Yeah. So 15 years as an individual contributor, primarily in enterprise sales. So spent the bulk of my career either as an IC or as a people leader, penetrating C-suite titles out of the Fortune 500. And I loved it. I've sold to every ICP that you can imagine, from like finance to HR to oil and gas to mining to farmers. We were
and
talking about
fertilizer. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember it.
Yep. Sold a innovative new fertilizer, sulfur solution. And then I left corporate about 2 years ago after growing sales team builder on the side as a side hustle passion project. Got up the guts, the gusto, the runway to say adios to corporate America. And then for the past 18 months, I have been running my own sales training and go-to-market consulting company.
Awesome, Leslie. It is so good to have you here. Now let's get into this.
Okay.
Around the difference between salespeople, those accidental salespeople that fall into sales and then never even want to mention the word sales and use all these funny little titles that don't involve the word sales, and we'll unpack that as well. But what's the difference between someone, take us on a journey around all the experiences, the patterns, the mistakes you've seen around people that treat sales as a job, differentiated compared to people that treat it as a profession. Why don't we start there?
Yeah. So the first time I really noticed this, actually, so we were talking about this off camera, but I spent most of my career, with the exception of the last 2 years where I worked for myself and 2 years where I worked at a startup. I spent my career working for UK based companies. And I noticed that when I talked to my American colleagues, they would say they were in sales. And when I talked to my British colleagues, they would describe the sector they sold into. They were in finance. They were in technology. And it got my mind spinning, because I was like, well, you're not in technology. You're in sales. And right now you're maybe selling in the technology space. But before this, you were selling business intelligence. And after this, who knows what you will sell? Like, the profession is sales. But there was both a shame component where they felt like it was sexier or more acceptable or more prestigious to have a career or job in finance or technology than it was to have a career in sales. And then I think there is also associated with that, Sinjin, like this mentality that sales is a job, not a career, and those things are a career.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I read something this morning around people that are anti-sales say that simply because they're not any good at it.
Or they've only ever experienced B2C sales. Like, I see this a lot, that people are like, especially on TikTok, people are like, walk in front of a bus, like all sellers are terrible. And I'm like, cool. You've literally never made a B2B purchase in your life. So you actually have no context for the job that I do, but because you have bought many things in a B2C environment, you think you do. Like, it's you know enough to, or like, what was the thing? It's the like Dunning-Kruger, right?
Yeah, Dunning-Kruger, overconfidence bias.
Yes. Yeah. Like, they really think that they know what they're talking about, but they actually have zero visibility or context for what happens in a B2B sales environment. So I think that there's a little bit of that going on as well, that folks are really hateful towards B2B sales as a profession because they've only ever seen and experienced B2C sales, which can be done very badly, manipulatively, is associated with con artists and theft and, worse. So I get it, but also stay in your lane.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. Sometimes people that can't sell professionally, maybe bigger things, is because they haven't actually had the confidence to buy bigger things. Now that's provocative.
Ooh. Like they would struggle to make those types of purchases, to like invest in themselves.
You
in
got it,
that way.
100%.
And so it would be very hard for them to then believe that other people would do it, which would like create a lack of confidence that
Yes,
a buyer can hear immediately. They can hear
100%.
that.
There is so much, Leslie, that we need to get into here. What you struck upon is what we said, and just before we hit the record button, you said, St. John, I want to talk about the difference between expertise and experience. Can we go there?
100%. So for Business Book Club, that I host a business book club, and for Business Book Club for December, we're reading the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And she answered a question that I have asked so many times. Like I've had this internal dialogue so many times of what is the difference between experience and expertise, or in the context of sales, why are there so many people that have been in sales for their entire career? Like they have made a quote unquote career out of it, and they are still so shit at
it. Yeah. Tell me about this difference between expertise and experience. Let's go further.
Yeah. So I think what often happens, and you see it a lot right now, like according to RepView, the average quota attainment for AEs is like 39.6%. It's in the gutter, right? So part of it is that they're getting away with it. Like you can be very mid, and that might still make you an overperformer, which is gross. And like that is part of the issue of why sales is so disrespected as a profession, because we are allowing people to not treat it with the respect, like not deliver at the caliber that they need. So I think that that's one piece of it. But the point that Angela makes that really answers my question is that experience doesn't honestly count for all that much, right? Like you can swim 10,000 hours and not be anywhere close to being a competitive swimmer. Correct, like you will maybe have gotten better at it, but you're not going to be competitive. You're not going to be an expert in that thing. And we find the same in sales. And the distinction that she makes is that folks who are experts are intentional about treating it as a craft. They are intentional about practicing with the specific goal of getting better. And that is something I see very, like, as somebody who has trained teams as a people manager for 15 years and now trains professionally, that is something that is so, so rare.
I love it, because that intent, I've always said it's really hard to motivate an unmotivated person.
Yeah.
And if you had to keep kicking their ass and they're haven't got some level or some flame of internal intrinsic motivation, you're going to get a really sore right foot, whichever foot you're kicking them with, metaphorically speaking. But it reminds me as well, when you said that really amazing quote about 39.6% is the average quota win rate for AEs, for account execs, we are tolerating that as managers. And then when you talk around this experience versus expertise, you might have experience of 10 years. But like I said before we went on, I can't remember if it was Zig Ziglar or someone, I think it was from a Zig Ziglar book. He said, you might have 10 years of experience, but you only have 1 year of experience, but you've just done it 10 times.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you get the Peter principle, right? They get promoted into a sales manager position purely on tenure, not on talent, not on expertise. So that thing around intention and ability to kick one's own ass and be self-disciplined, self-motivated, self-responsible, all the things that you and I look for traits in the teams that we teach, they practice deliberately, practice their craft, and they're intentional about it. So yeah, let's go more on this, because there's so many things that distinguish between this illusion of self
and like, let me ask you this, Jen. Like, I'm asking everybody that's listening to sort of have the conversation in their own head. Like, you're looking at a pool of candidates. you're a sales hiring manager, and all of them have, you know, between 5 and 10 years of experience, and you have one candidate that has like pretty good chops, pretty good sales experience, but an atrocious attitude.
Yeah.
And you have somebody else that's maybe at the very low end, maybe they're at that just like barely got to 5 years of experience, but they are gritty, they are curious, they are empathetic, they are driven and hungry. Are you going to hire the person with 10 years of experience and the extra certifications, or the person with the 5 years of experience and the right attitude?
It's attitude every time.
Every
It's
time.
attitude every time.
But
Yeah.
then somehow we miss that. Like, we know that that's the right profile. Like, we know that that's the right persona of somebody that's going to be successful. But where does it go? Like, what happens? Do all the good ones just leave us behind?
Well, I think it's sort of like, it's all about that risk reduction or loss aversion, and there's some psych in there around, okay, well, they've got 10 years experience, so they've been around the traps more. They must have more chops. And it's a whole old adage, cliche as it is, but we say cliches because there's such truism in them, that you hire for attitude and you train for aptitude.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I just see, I want to talk about the other thing that you brought up, which is very, very important, is some people treating it like a job and some people treating it like a profession.
Yeah.
And like, what do the people that treat it like a job? I think the answer is pretty obvious. So I just want to draw the comparison, put the contrast principle in here for the listeners. When they're visualizing their own mind about themselves or the teams that they coach or manage or lead or employee, tell me what a person that treats sales as a job, and tell me what a salesperson who treats it like a profession. What's the difference between the two? What do they look like?
Yeah, well, I think an easy distinction is short-term v long-term goals, right? Like, if it's a job, you maybe want to get good at sales to move into marketing or move into product, like it is a avenue to something else, or you want to learn how to sell so you can open your own company. Like, your goal with it is maybe really short-term versus I want to become a chief revenue officer someday, where you see yourself making a career out of it. I think that's one serious distinction. I think another really easy one is I'm just going to show up every day and do the job versus I am going to read the books and listen to the podcasts and take the certifications and go to the conferences, because I don't want to just do the job. I want to be exceptional at the job.
Yeah, absolutely love it. They're a rare breed though, aren't they? Like, you know, a lot of people will spend money on their kids' gym classes, pony classes, tennis classes, golf, swing. But then the moment of truth is when you ask them to invest in themselves, and they think the company has a responsibility solely and exclusively to develop them. Now, with professionals, you don't see that.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I actually got into a bit of a back and forth about this topic in the comments of a post recently, because a woman was complaining that her company doesn't give her any tech stack. And I was like, yeah, that's shit. Like, they should give you a tech stack. But like, here's the situation. They're not. And you didn't put in your notice. So if you're going to stay there, the choice is to decide to invest in your own tech stack if you think it's that important. And then I said, like, that's what I did. I paid for my own LinkedIn premium for almost my entire career, like with the exception of a few years when I had a company that would pay for it. Like, for a while, I paid for Lucia because they had so many mobile numbers that ZoomInfo doesn't have. And I wanted the mobile numbers. And I looked at it in the context of, yeah, this sucks. Like, do I want to be paying a couple $1,000s a year out of my own pocket for a tech stack to do a job to make this company money? Like, no, I don't. But what's the upside for me? It makes my job easier. I can do it faster. It's more enjoyable, and there's more money in the bank, way more than the $2,000 I spent on the extra tech stack. So I agree with you, because I see it a lot with training, where yes, companies should be investing in the growth and training of their employees. That's a given. I don't want anybody to get it twisted that I don't think that's the case. Like, good God, hire me and give me money. That's what I do for a living. But if they're not doing that or doing that to your satisfaction, and you're choosing to stay there, and you are not investing in your own success, like you simply don't want to win that bad. You just want to bitch about it.
Yeah, I agree. You can just stay stuck and play victim,
Yeah.
or you can play victor and take responsibility and ownership and accountability for your situation and go, right, because we all know, because we're big grown-ups here, right? No one is coming to save you.
Yeah.
I left a hugely paying job to start my business 7 years ago, and it was a jump from a skyscraper to a bungalow, like a one-story house at best.
Very
And
relatable.
I had big mortgages, 3 kids to feed, and it was balls on the line, so to speak. But I never looked back, and I never ever shortcutted in investing in myself. And it's that Benjamin Franklin quote, right? A man empties his pennies into his head, it will never ever leave. Like the best education is the one that continues to carry with you, and no one can take that away.
No, that I mean, yes, I think
I
that's,
butchered it. I know I butchered the quote, but you know what I mean.
but I feel like the point is there that like I can get fired. I can lose all the money that I have in the stock market. Like some things are I wouldn't say easy come, easy go, because I don't think jobs and money are that easy to come. But like some things are more fluid. But the knowledge that I've acquired, that is like the one thing, not even just knowledge, but like my total mindset, like what I have cultivated in myself, my knowledge, my approach to life, the neuro pathways that I have created by forcing myself to bias towards positivity, even when it freaking sucks.
Yeah.
Like that can't be taken from me. And I think that's one of the first things that we bonded on is that like I got a $460K job offer the day after I had decided to leave corporate America. And like, I'd made like that decision that I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then the next day, this job offer came in that frankly, I didn't think was coming. And that is way more than I had previously made. It would be genuinely, it would be like a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I would have been working 60 to 80 hours a week. I would have been working for somebody else. I would not have been able to continue to invest in sales team builder as a side business because I would have been maxed out doing that job. And I had to choose, do I bet on myself?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes. I love that. And the reason I want to just pick that up is I think a lot of people don't invest in themselves because they don't trust themselves. They don't bet on themselves. And that real, when you had that opportunity where you're going for almost $500,000 in salary and you're going, no, I'm going to invest in the side business. And I think that we're defined as much by what we say no to, more so than what we say yes to. And that is a fierce determination. It's very bold. It's very brave. It's not for everyone.
It's scary. It was like, I don't want people to think that I was like jumping blindly into the unknown. And this is amazing. Like I was shaking in my boots, but it also, and like, this is true for that masterclass I just heard as well. And like the keynote that I was like, this is a thing I want, and I'm not going to self-reject. Like other people can tell me no. I'm not going to tell myself no. So it's not that it wasn't scary. And it's not that it wasn't hard to live on a very tight budget after living on my tech sales salary for many years. But I wasn't going to be the person to tell myself that I wasn't good enough to place this bet on me.
Yeah, so good. You must place bets on yourself. But the funny thing is, you don't need to, when it comes to like the listener and then going, oh, well, that's fine for Leslie because she's got 33,000 followers on LinkedIn and she's got this business and she's just done a masterclass in Times Square of New York. But what I wanted to say is that the reality is you can take small bets on yourself. You don't need to bet the farm.
Yeah.
You can literally take small little bets and do a small thing and a better thing and a better thing. But I just want to get back to like the long-term nature of a professional versus the short-term person of just a
I have one
job
more thing,
chaser.
and then we can go back to that like people can say that all they want, like the what ifs or like that fixed mindset. But you want to know what the first bet I took on myself was that really changed this trajectory?
Please.
TikTok. I started making TikTok videos, and everybody told me that it was stupid, that it was a place for kids. It was when Trump was saying he was going to ban it in the US. It's when Clubhouse started and everybody was like breaking their ankles to run the Clubhouse. And everybody told me that I was stupid and wrong. And I was like, I don't feel that way. I'm going to take this bet on myself because I'm going to trust my instinct. And that was what gave me the courage to later leave my job, because I had 46K in revenue that had come from lead flow from TikTok. So like those small little things add up if you show up and do them consistently. So just start by taking any small action is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that is very, very important. You can take a little step. It doesn't need to be a big leap. However, let's go back to the professional that really is intentional about practicing their craft, that deliberate practice. What are the things that you see in someone who's got that potential? There's some giveaways, there's some signs, there's the tells that tell is what I say.
I would say one of the big ones is like appetite for failure or like appetite for risk. There is a level of confidence in their knowledge or worth or whatever they bring to the table that they're willing to push against their boundaries, to like push gently against their boundaries and not play it so safe, because they, I think that they are like, if I get this wrong, it doesn't mean that I'm just like bad at sales. It means I just didn't get this one right. So I think there's like some distinction there for appetite of risk / being really confident in what they're bringing to the table / like detaching from the outcome, that one failure doesn't mean they're a failure. It just means they failed doing that one thing that one time. And then I would say related to that is that like grit, tenacity, or resilience, or whatever you want to call it, that they're like, okay, time to try something else.
Yeah. I the one that I loved was detachment. It's so funny. I think I can't remember like which athlete it was, but we talked about it. I've got a guy that does Olympic training over here with triathlon and bike and Z, and this small little country that punches way above its weight. We've only got like 5 million people. We get a lot of gold medals, and in particular sports especially. And I think Mark was talking, he said, you must focus on the process, not the podium. Do not worry about the outcome. Detach yourself from the outcome. Focus in the now. Focus on the oar stroke. Focus on the pedal stroke. Focus on the swim stroke, whatever it needs to be, and you're going to get better. I mean, there's so much in here around this detachment of ego or concern of how we look to others, which is a survival mechanism in the psyche, right? If we stick our neck out, what's that?
Like I struggle with that deeply, like judgment from others.
Well, judgment of self, judgment of self,
judgment of others, rejection. Like I struggle with all of those things. I don't let them stop me. Like I do a thing knowing that I might fall on my face and that will hurt. But like that's like, Lynn, I think I bring that up, St. Jim, because I feel like that's one of the things that like people listen to these podcasts and they're like, I don't know, like they think that the people telling these stories don't fail or don't have imposter syndrome or don't face rejection or don't fear rejection. Like all of those same emotions that you feel and are navigating, they're happening to these people that are knocking off these big milestones. Like they're not mutually exclusive. They're just not an impediment to taking action.
Yeah. I also think that when someone listens to you, Leslie, you've had to go through those things on that journey. And it's one small step at a time. And then that positive upward spiral on compound effect, because compound effect can happen negatively and it can happen positively. And now you took steps to invest in yourself, develop invest in your own MarTech, take on your own coaches, take on your mentors, and then you don't look back. So I think the most important thing is you must do something small and take that first step, buy that book, buy that course, buy that webinar, do whatever it is that you are intrigued to know and master, and then deliberately practice to get better. Because basically, if we don't fail, we don't succeed.
Yeah.
Otherwise we just keep walking around the coffee table and we learn to walk and we don't actually end up walking.
It's true. Two thoughts. One, like when I started getting really popular on TikTok and LinkedIn, I naturally had a lot of people reaching out to me to ask for advice. And I will tell you without fail, the number one most common reason that people do not grow on a social platform is because they don't post their first post. So like, spoiler alert, folks, like you are getting in your own way because you're overthinking it. And then the other thought, because you were talking about, like detaching from the outcome and not being focused on the end result so much as the journey. And I have the perfect sales analogy because I work with folks a lot on objection handling, which I know you do as well. Yeah. And we often use the terminology to like tackle objections, overcome objections, smash objections, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I do before we dig into any frameworks or any terminology is to refocus the mindset on one, leading with gratitude. Because if somebody's giving you objection, the alternative was worse. It was they were going to hang up on you. They were going to lie to you. They were whatever. They were going to say nothing. Yeah. So it's always better to get the objection. So start with gratitude and then follow that up with curiosity and have your number one metric always, always, always be continuing the conversation. That's it. Your goal is just to keep the conversation going. And if that can be your North Star, naturally you will overcome more objections and you will set more meetings and all of those positive outcomes will come by not focusing on those outcomes. And it is arguably kind of counterintuitive though.
I tell you something, it was about 2 years ago. I don't know if it was an epiphany while I was walking down the street. I was like, there's so much in life that is counterintuitive and contradictory that's actually successful. Like, if you break your hip, you have to put weight on it. Like, you don't do that. Like, when you're feeling nauseous, normally you actually have to eat. It's a sign that sometimes you need to eat. So many sort of counterintuitive patterns. But on that, I wanted to talk around the objections. I agree. You're not wrestling because, you don't do that because it's aggressive. What you do is you embrace and then you pivot. And so what you do is sometimes we talk about disarm and nullify and neutralize. And this sort of sounds like you're in a sort of military control center sending the troops out. Now, I'm guilty of using that language as well. And sometimes I fall into that. But ultimately, it's like the objection they're sending you is a signal. Now, it's not necessary for me, and you might challenge me on this, and please do if you do. I don't think it's necessarily a signal of buyer interest. It's a signal that the quality of your conversation hasn't been good enough. What are your thoughts?
But not so bad that I'm going to hang up on
you. Yes, exactly. Because I always say, like, some traditions say, oh, the more objections you get, the more buyer interest. I call bullshit on that. I say the reason they're giving more objections is they can't see a value. And they don't, and we talked a lot about buyer safety of Andy on that. That's massive that you and I talk about too, that psychological safety. But ultimately, if you're getting more objections, it's usually because the quality of your sales conversation is poor because the quality of your questions are poor. Because objections really are a veiled byproduct of questions or not the right questions being asked. What's your thoughts?
I think there's a spectrum, right? Like by getting an objection is good, in the fact that it means the door is still open. The door has not been slammed in your face.
Good.
They're willing to continue a conversation. What you do next is the determining factor. So if you start talking at them, you go into seller mode, or often we think it's helper mode, right? We're like, yeah, I understand your objection, but you can actually use this feature and you can... All of that is a turn off, and you're only going to get more objections. And that is only going to lead you down a path of no decision or close lost or just crickets. And you'll be like, I don't understand. They asked me so many objections, and some guru on a podcast told me that 17 objections on a call is a great sign. And the next thing that you do is ask another question.
Yeah.
That means that you may still hear more objections, but you're hearing them in the context of like, okay, but how would that work? Right? Like they're matching your curiosity with more curiosity. And I think what you're really listening for, Sinjin, are the questions in the context of imagining themselves use the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Context is everything, because I think, we're not talking about pre-framing and framing and all that kind of stuff, but like ultimately human beings want to be seen, heard, and understood. And if you're too busy subconsciously thinking about your needs and serving your best interests rather than the best interests of your buyer, you will not make as many sales. Everything I hammer into my students is we serve before we sell. We serve to sell. And because we are serving the best interests of our customers before ourselves, we make more sales because our buyer feels safe. But the objection thing, we won't go down a rabbit hole too much, but the rejection thing, there's a Freudian slip. The rejection is biological.
Objection.
Yeah, the objection isn't a rejection. It's usually a question of timing or priority or urgency. And your job in the conversation is to clarify and qualify where they are at in that cycle. And we know from that buying pyramid, there's 37% of the buyers that aren't thinking about buying. They're sitting on the fence. They need more information. So look, Leslie, I want to go back to like more around the people that listen to podcasts like yours, mine, whoever's. What are some of the patterns that the routines or rituals that they can create to become that snowball effect once they take one little step and then they take another? Because I hear a lot of complaints is like, I wish I had time to read as many books as you, St. John, or how do you get the time to learn all the things you do? Now, you are a big driver and ambitious and invest heavily in your own growth. What are the routines or rituals or scaffolding to your success that you've created in your life that have worked really well for you?
Okay, I have to answer this question in two different ways.
Please.
And so I'll answer in a moment, like how I've done it for myself, and maybe people can take inspiration from that. But here's what really gets me about consuming information. And I actually just on a call today heard somebody describe it as aspirational learners versus experiential learners.
Nice.
And most people are aspirational learners. So they want to get better, right? Like they've taken that first step. They're listening to this podcast, they're reading the book, but that's it. They stop after that and they don't take that next step of using what they've learned. And without using it and testing it for yourself, it is impossible to like digest it and it's impossible to make it your own knowledge. So you've heard something, but you don't actually know something. And I think that is an incredibly important distinction. That is literally why I started my book club, because people were like, oh, I'm reading this LinkedIn post and that LinkedIn post and I'm saving this. And I'm like, you're just nailing your brain with dopamine hits and tricking it into thinking that it's doing something, and you have actually not learned
So true.
anything.
So true.
I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it a ton of times where smart people, good people, people with a ton of potential get stuck in a cycle of consuming without action. And like, let's also be super fair. We live in a society where that, like, our brains are being poisoned with that.
Yeah.
So like, give yourself a little bit of grace to understand that like these social media apps are highly, highly engineered to give your brain the dopamine fix that it is searching for, that is tricking you into think that you are learning something. When you save that recipe that you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to make this sometime later. When you bookmark this podcast, oh, I'm definitely going to come back and listen to that later. Your brain has gotten most of the dopamine that it's going to get.
Yeah.
So there's not that much of a mental reward to come back. That's where a lot of that like grit and resilience and focus on a long-term goal and like belief that sales is a profession. So coming back and putting in the effort, all is worth it. How do I do it? I take a page right out of Atomic Habits. Let's talk about another book. I build in super, super mini routines.
Good.
So a couple of my big tricks are like I have a SoulCycle bike sitting directly in front of me. Folks can't see it, but it's right there. And my goal is never I'm going to bike 10 miles. My goal is I'm going to put on my SoulCycle shoes because it's a clip-in bike.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, folks, once I have taken the time to put on my shoes.
You're committed.
Like, I'm just going to take them off and what? No, like I'm at least going to get on the bike. Maybe I'm not going to do 2 miles. Maybe it's, 10 miles, maybe it's 2 miles, but like I have moved my body on a day when I otherwise might not have. So I focus on very small things that are very easy to say yes to. I am a huge fan of habit stacking, or if anybody's read the book Streaking.
Which one's what's that called, Leslie? Streaking.
Streaking. So like the way that I start my day every single day is the first thing that I do is I put on Calm and I listen to a meditation every single day before I do everything else. So I don't give myself a chance to mess anything up. And then the next thing I do is I listen to a book or listen to a podcast, or I usually do Blinkist, but sometimes the books are not. I don't need to read.
That sounds like a dopamine hit.
The Blinkist are, I love a Blinkist. It is, right? So like feed into that a little bit. Like that's great. A 15-minute Blinkist. Like I'll get maybe one idea and then sometimes I'll actually read the book. I don't actually do the paid version of Blinkist. Sorry, Blinkist. I do the free one because it feeds you one free book a day. And so often it's a topic I wouldn't choose for myself. Good. So it is a dopamine hit because I am a high input person. So it also, I'm like, ooh, look at this new thing I learned about. Fun facts. But what I'm ultimately trying, and then after that, I drink a cup of tap water with cayenne and lemon in it. And then after that, and I do wrist circles. I do 10 wrist circles one way, 10 wrist circles. So I have this stack of mini habits that I do every single morning. I mean, it's like, less than 30 minutes of total time that it takes me. But it also is delaying the amount of time until I get on social media. Yeah. Which is very good for the brain. Yes. To just resist. And usually what will happen is that I do all of those activities and then I get busy doing something else. And so I won't actually come back and check social media until the evening because I will have then gotten busy with the work and doing this and doing that. So it's like, there's another element of Atomic Habits. It's like, put it out of view. Correct. Out of sight. Out of mind. Yeah. I actually I don't even know where my second phone is right now, but I keep 2 phones and one phone has like my LinkedIn, my work email, and my work calendar. And that's the phone number I give out to people. Yep. And then I have another phone that like pretty much is just like close friends and family. Yep. And that really helped, like that my work phone stays in the office at the end of the day so that I don't have to exercise what at the end of the day is a kind of limited reservoir of willpower remaining. Yeah. I love this. I love this because if listeners, if you're listening carefully, I call it barnacles on the boat. And what you're doing is you're removing all friction. So for me, people go, oh, St. John, how do you read so many books? I said, well, one, I want to, like, there's a desire for me not so much the dopamine hit because there's a teacher effect, the explanation effect. The more I learn, the more valuable I can be for my students and my clients, right? So what I do is I wake up early before my household gets up and my household gets really noisy. And for half an hour, I read with a cup of tea. And it wakes my brain up in a way that if I jumped on my phone, my brain would almost go, yuck. And I have very similar routines where for all of us, you have to create that space. And whether it's, what's his name, the Miracle Morning, Hal Elroyd, like having routines and rituals are the scaffold to your success. I really believe in that. And you have to have very strong boundaries, really, really strong systems and structures. Atomic Habits is a brilliant book to read, as is BJ Fogg and Tiny Habits. But those habits are the scaffolding that, you get your movement in, you get your quiet time in, your space for Leslie, before you and I, who are both very hard chargers, high input people, and we're all go all day. But you you pay yourself first in the morning. And, people don't realize that they waste so much time. I'd have to put if a team are really underperforming, I put them on time diaries and they hate it. Oh, yeah. They hate it. One of my most popular sessions is a time management session and it blows people's minds. Yeah. Blows people's minds.
Tell me more.
But, so you just mentioned boundaries. Yeah. And at the very beginning of our time together, St. John, you said, I've been waiting for this. Leslie is very busy. No, I'm not.
Mm.
I am rigorous with my boundaries, and I only record podcasts on some months two, but usually 1 day a month. So that is the day. If it doesn't work for you, I'm not going to be on your podcast.
Yeah, good.
And if it doesn't work for you to wait for the 3 months that it might take to get into my diary,
So be it. Yeah,
I'm
love it.
not going to be on your
Love
podcast.
it.
And creating those types of boundaries helps me avoid time wasting.
Yeah.
Surely. And then you see like the way that I transition it to sellers is a lot of like time blocking or clustering, or like what, whatever phrase you want to use for it. And a perfect example I give is if people are making outbound cold calls, that I'll often see a seller like make 3 phone calls, reach somebody, pivot, open their CRM, do this, then open their email, and then they send an email, and all of a sudden they are responding to another email. No, you make your hour of cold calls, and then at the end of that time block of cold calls, you have another block immediately after where you do your admin, your follow-ups, your CRM. It's the same way I create content. I batch create all of my content and schedule it. So people are like, you're everywhere. You're so busy. No, I'm not. I took a day and I batch created a month worth of TikTok videos, and then they are all scheduled. It takes me a little bit longer to do my LinkedIn since they're like more thoughtful written posts, and TikTok is just me ranting at the camera. But the premise is the same. Like if I looked at how much time it would take me if 3 days a week I was stopping what I was doing, creating a TikTok video, editing it, posting it. If 7 days a week I was creating a LinkedIn post from scratch, editing it, posting it, how much more time would that take, and how much more distraction would that cause in my life versus batching and scheduling?
Yeah, so true.
So I think a lot of like, how can I own my time instead of my time owning me is sort of the premise by which I live my life. And I run a 6-figure agency working a 4-day work week. So like it's possible.
Yeah, exactly. I love the blocking and the batching, but we're addicted to the dopamine hit of distraction and shiny things. But sometimes we just have to do the boring work. Some people theme their days. I generally don't travel on a Monday or Friday because it's a horrible way to start the week, and it's a horrible way to finish the week, particularly if your planes are late, which they often are in Australia and New Zealand. Let's get back to this. Before we sort of wrap up, I want to get into what are the signs and signals you see from people that we talked around their detachment, their appetite for failure, or their appetite for risk. What are the other things you see or you want to nurture in your team? Because we know there's a bell curve in a team, and there's a disproportionate sales created by a smaller amount of people. But what else do you see that you can encourage in your team? Let's talk about some of the mistakes you see, and sort of drop this because this could be a huge subject, but some of the mistakes you see with managers that miss those signs of potential in their team.
What do most managers miss? I think part of the answer has to do with that manager maybe not even knowing what good looks like.
Very good. Yeah.
Nailed it.
No, I mean, you have pretty much nailed it, because if they're using their own frame of reference and it's a Peter principle and they were those 10 years, that's only 1 year of experience done 10 times, they don't actually know what good looks like because they don't actually know what to look for.
Yeah. I mean, that was me when I was a new manager. I mean, I was better than most because I had worked through high school and college, and I'd managed a lot of people in college, but I'd never managed people in this environment. The managers that I had were frankly bad, not just bad managers, but some of them were kind of bad people. Yeah. And they were telling me what good looked like, and it felt wrong. It didn't feel right, but I had nowhere else to look. I had no alternate narrative. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And then the worst part is that in the short term, a lot of it worked.
But it's not long term.
But in the long term, it was just creating this terribly toxic culture. I was feeling physically ill sometimes because it grossed me out. And so, I mean, it clearly didn't last that long, but I think a tremendous amount of managers find themselves in that sort of situation or something adjacent to it, where there isn't a model of what they should be looking like. Because even if we think about who our top salespeople are, often our top salespeople are kind of jerks. Like they might be a top performer, but they're not actually an A player in the context of who you want to model your team after.
So true. Like, I just interject on that. That is such a good point you're making there, because it's like you're looking for their character. Like, there's an attribute I look for in people, and it's conscientiousness. It's massive for me. Do they keep their appointments? Are they in time? Do they communicate? Are they polite? Do they respect people's time? Do they clean up after themselves? Conscientious is a big signaler for me. But you know, the sales teams that you get the teams you tolerate, but you also get the managers you tolerate, right? You know, it's sort of like managers are such a massive multiplier over a team's success or not. And the point I wanted to make was, you're talking about, we often focus on the on-field behavior, but it's actually the off-field behavior that dictates the on-field behavior. And I'm more interested these days, as I get a wee bit older, is in character of people, their character. And it's the Carnegie quote, hey, you know, the older I get, the more I watch what people do, not what they say. You know, that's the key one for me, is around that. That's the big one, is looking for the signals that they're sending that they might not even be self-aware that they're sending.
Ooh, it's so true. I feel like there's a missed opportunity for like a Ted Lasso quote in here. I don't have that off the top of my head. If people are listening, make sure that you like leave a comment, leave a review, and just leave a review that is a Ted Lasso comment.
He's like the greatest psychotherapist, philosopher known, man. What are the other ways you think that people can, we've covered a lot here, like be willing to take a bet on yourself, even if it's a small step, just a little thing, and prove to yourself that you are worth it, and you invest in yourself, and you will get massive dividends from that small step. What are the other areas that you say people should focus on proactively outside of work, not just inside work? Because everyone's got that victim. You need to save me. The world's unfair. You need to pay for my training. I'm not going to reach out and use my credit card to invest in myself for lifelong learning and lifelong skills that no one else can take from me. But what are the things that you can do to accelerate the experience? Because sometimes say experience can't be bought. I don't have enough experience. Because there's a difference, like you say, between experience and expertise. So sorry, my question is, how do you starting again, how do you accelerate your expertise? Because we know that experience in this show we've talked about is a bit of a myth.
Yeah, intentional practice.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. Be intentional about the practice. And you hit on some really important stuff. Like, yes, you should be gently pushing against your boundaries on a regular basis. And that will feed into intentional practice, because you will push yourself to do things that you're not great at. And that is scary. And that does mean that sometimes you will get it wrong and that you will fail. But like, that's really important. Intentional practice, pushing against your boundaries. I would also say something I would really encourage people to do is to question their internalized narrative of false urgency.
Yeah.
I think this is something that I had a long like journey of coming out on the other side of. Like, sales is a profession that sort of thrives on keeping us in a state of hyperarousal. And we then are rewiring our brains to crave hyperarousal, which means we become very uncomfortable with boredom and stillness and silence and space.
Thus the Calm app first thing.
Thus the Calm app first thing. And it's like, one of the reasons I work a 4-day work week is that I hold Mondays and I do an extra long meditation and like a 2 to 3 hour journaling session.
Right.
And then I ride my bike and then I read. And it is all in this effort to like rewire my brain to both get more comfortable with stillness, but also a lot of it is like giving myself permission to not feel guilt.
Very true.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Been unpacking it for 2 years and I'm still working on it, team. But like that's it, right? Like, expertise isn't built overnight. But if you want to expedite your way to expertise, it will require you to question how you are spending your time, the stories that you are telling yourself, and the way that you are viewing sort of the what comes next. And I think, St. John, to your point, like, don't wait for your company to place a bet on you, place that bet on yourself. And if that means trying out a new sales message on the phone, do it. If that means buying a book or an audio book for the first time, do it. Like, if that means maybe going for it and spending $500 to join a mastermind, like, you're worth it. So place that bet on yourself.
I think that's a big takeout of this discussion is that is a Ted Lasso quote almost there. Like, do not wait for your company to take a bet on yourself. Take a bet on yourself, because you are worth it. And there's a reason why people that are very good at sales command really good salaries, because they are worth it, because their skill set is worth it. And, you know, more skills, more bills. I mean, your skill set is everything. It is very important, and your mental aptitude and your mindset and all the things that me and Leslie have been talking about here. Last thing before we send people to where they can get hold of you and some of the objection handling stuff, best advice you've ever been given. Now, this could be sales related or sales adjacent, but best advice you've ever been given and why.
Do not self-reject. Like, I think that's, I think I might have heard it on a Blinkist to bring this full circle. Like, I don't even remember where I heard it. If it was like a podcast, a Blinkist, if I were somewhere. But I think, like, so often in life, we may have heard something before and then we hear it again at the right time. And it just hits you like a sack of potatoes. I'm not sure if that reference translates.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. I understand.
Okay, I was like, maybe that's like a weird
bus.
American phrase. Yeah. Okay, yes. And I heard it a couple of years ago, St. John, at this time of my life when I was interviewing and I was facing a lot of rejection, and it was stupid stuff. Like, you don't have 10 years of cloud computing experience. And I'm like, neither do you, Trent. And I was just like, I was feeling very frustrated. People were constantly, it felt like, trying to pull me down. And I was starting to believe them. And then I realized that I wasn't taking chances on myself, because I was already saying to myself, well, that'll never happen. I'll never be able to do that. And was like, whoa. Like, this, we're not playing this game. Like, other people can say whatever they want about me. I'm not going to say those things about myself. I will not self-reject. I will not be the person that stands in my own way or closes my own doors. And so I would share that with everybody listening today, as well as a call.
I love that. Do not self-reject. Leslie, where's the best place to send people to connect with you?
LinkedIn.
Awesome.
And then TikTok. I'm on TikTok at Sales Tips Talk. So I post on LinkedIn daily, have every single day for over 1,000 days.
Got it.
And I post video content on TikTok and YouTube if you prefer video content. And then if anybody does want to join book club, I would just be delighted to have you. I have a monthly option that's on Patreon. So it's just patreon.com/businessbookclub. And then I'm also on Gumroad with an annual option that's a little bit cheaper. Same thing though. It's at Business Book Club on Gumroad as well. And if you DM me on LinkedIn, I can share.
Awesome. We'll get the links on the show notes. Leslie, thank you so much.
This is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everybody who listened along.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie.